I read about a man once who worked as a custodian in a public school outside Cleveland for 31 years. Everyone called him Mr. Delacroix. Same brown canvas jacket every winter, same thermos, same 15-minute walk to work no matter how cold it got. He mopped the same hallways for 3 decades, and most of the teachers barely knew his first name. Down the street from where he lived, there was another man, younger, drove a leased truck that got traded in every 2 years, always had a new watch, always had a story about some investment that was about to take off. Everyone believed him because that is just how it works. The man who talks about money sounds like the man who has it. Here is what nobody on that street knew. When Mr. Delacroix passed away, he left behind $11 million. Not a lottery ticket, not a hidden inheritance, just $11 million built one ordinary Tuesday at a time for 31 years. What surprised people was not the number itself. It was that nobody who knew him would have guessed he had 6 figures, let alone 7. That $11 million was not sitting in some account nobody could see. It was hidden inside decades of decisions nobody was watching him make. Turns out, that is usually where it lives. There is the account everyone can check on their phone, and there is a second one that never shows up on any statement. I like to call it the invisible account. Tonight I want to talk about what actually fills that account. Not theory, not something I read in a book, just things I have noticed. Some of them the hard way. Everyone has a number they can pull up at 2 a.m. if they are anxious enough. That is the visible account. Everyone can see it, or at least they think they can. But there is a second account that your bank never sees. Your friends never see. Most days, even you do not see it, because there is no app for it. It is not money sitting somewhere. It is what you did when nobody was watching. The good year you never mentioned out loud. The relationship you kept up, even when you did not need anything from that person. The hour you spent teaching yourself something instead of scrolling through your phone. None of that shows up anywhere official, but it compounds exactly the way money does, just slower and much quieter. Here is the part that took me years to actually understand. People assume wealth compounds through investments first. It actually compounds through identity first. The money is usually just the receipt. The behavior was always the real purchase. Mr. Delacroix's visible account probably looked unremarkable for most of his life. A custodian's paycheck, a modest rented house, nothing worth bragging about at a family dinner. His invisible account was an entirely different story. So tonight I want to walk through 9 things that actually build that second account. Nothing complicated. Some of these I learned by watching people like him. A few I learned by getting them wrong first. The first one is the one people get wrong the most: silence. I had a friend in his 20s, hard worker, good instincts, but every single time something good happened with his money, he had to tell somebody. The bonus, the stock that finally moved, the side deal that came through. I understand the impulse. It feels good to say it out loud. But here is what I started noticing. Every time he told the story, something about it shifted slightly, like the telling had become the actual point instead of the money itself. He was not building anything anymore. He was spending something, just not dollars. The moment you announce what you made, that feeling is already gone, already spent on somebody else's reaction. The people who actually build something quietly do the opposite, and it is not because they are humble. They figured out something the rest of us take years to learn. If nobody knows what you have, nobody expects anything from you. Nobody asks to borrow from you. Nobody assumes you are picking up the check. Nobody starts looking at you differently. You just get to keep going, quietly, undisturbed. I would bet that is the real reason a man like Mr. Delacroix went unnoticed for 31 years. Not an accident, a decision made over and over, every single time there was something to say, and he chose not to say it. That is the first entry in the invisible account. Not what you earned, what you never announced. Second thing, you ever notice how certain people always seem to know about something before everyone else does? The good deal, the job that was not posted yet, the mechanic who will fix your car for half of what a stranger would charge. For a long time, I assumed that was luck. It is not luck, it is timing, just not the timing most people think. Most of us only reach out to people the moment we need something. The car breaks down and suddenly you are calling everyone you know. Money gets tight and suddenly you are networking. By then it is already too late. Nobody wants to build something with someone who only shows up asking. The people who always seemed to have the answer did something different long before they needed anything. Small things that looked like nothing at the time. Grabbing lunch with a coworker from another department just to talk. No agenda at all. At the moment, it looks like wasted time. It is not. It is a deposit into an account that does not pay interest in dollars. It pays interest in trust and information and getting the call before the opportunity ever reaches anyone else. When they eventually needed something, somebody remembered them. Not because they asked well, because they had already shown up long before they needed to ask at all. Third thing, and this one stings a little. There is a real difference between being busy with your money and being strategic with it. Busy looks like effort. Comparing prices at the grocery store, doing math in your head over every small purchase. I knew a man who once spent nearly an hour tracking down a coupon to save $6. An hour of his life for $6. That same man never once sat down and asked what a single certification for his job might do to his income over the next 20 years. One of those is busy. The other one is strategic. Most of us are stuck doing the first thing, feeling productive, while the second question just sits there completely unasked. Strategic means knowing one number, not this week's number. The number that tells you how much you actually need overall to be okay. Most people cannot answer that. I could not answer it for years. I could tell you exactly what gas cost that week. I could tell you precisely how annoyed I was about a utility bill. I could not tell you the one number that actually mattered. The people who have genuinely figured this out are not comparing prices at checkout. They sat down once, did the uncomfortable math, and have not needed to panic over a receipt since. Busy feels like control. Strategic actually is control. Fourth thing, and people usually get this one backwards. They assume if they want to reach the next level, they should already look like they are there. A newer car, nicer clothes, a better everything. That is not it at all. That is closer to the opposite of it. What you should be copying is not the lifestyle, it is the discipline. Someone with real security does not check their account in a panic. They do not buy something just because the week was rough. They do not let one good month turn into 3 careless ones. I watched this happen with a coworker once. The team went out after landing a big client, everyone ordering rounds, tossing cards on the table like it did not matter. She ordered one drink, split an appetizer, and left before the bill got out of hand. Someone joked that she was being cheap. She was not being cheap. She just was not performing relief. Landing that client did not change what she actually needed long term, so it did not change what she spent that night. That is the entire difference. Most of us let a good week write a check that a rough month eventually has to cash. That discipline is the part worth copying, not the car, not the round of drinks. You can start living like that today with whatever you currently have. You do not need a bigger paycheck to stop panic spending. You do not need more money to start saying no to yourself once in a while. That part is free. It is just uncomfortable. Nobody is born already knowing this. You just start practicing it before anyone would call it necessary, before the paycheck justifies it, before anyone is impressed by it. The behavior comes first. The number eventually catches up. Fifth thing. I avoided this one for a long time because it felt like homework. Writing things down, not for anyone else, just for yourself. Here is the truth about memory. It is genuinely terrible at this. You will remember that you meant to save more. You will not remember the exact month it quietly slipped away. I opened a plain spreadsheet once, nothing complicated, just numbers laid out month by month. The first time I looked at it, honestly, I felt a little sick, not because the numbers were awful, but because I realized I had been telling myself a story that was not quite true. I thought I was saving around 15%. Once I actually wrote it down, it was closer to 4. Nobody lied to me about that. I had quietly lied to myself for almost 2 years just by refusing to look. That is what a spreadsheet does that a feeling never will. It does not care how responsible you meant to be last month. Most people think a budget just tells you where your money went. I do not think that is really what it does. I think it tells you who you were slowly becoming, one decision at a time. Every spreadsheet is a diary. Most people just do not realize they are writing one. You do not need anything complicated. A notebook works fine. Your phone works fine. You just need to actually look on purpose, regularly. The people who stay ahead of their own money are not the ones with the best memory. They are the ones who stopped trusting memory and started trusting the page instead. Sixth thing. Nobody taught me any of this properly. Not in school, not really at home either. Nobody sat me down and explained what compounding actually does across 30 years. Nobody told me what a retirement account even was until far later than it should have happened. For a while, I used that as an excuse. Nobody taught me, so how was I supposed to know? Here is what I would tell my younger self now. You do not need somebody to teach you. You need about 10 minutes and a little bit of curiosity. I remember the exact night I finally looked something up. Not a class, not a course, just me sitting there typing a question into my phone that I had been too embarrassed to ask anyone out loud. It took less time than the show I was about to watch instead. Looking back, that was the only real thing standing in my way. Not money, not access, just the 10 minutes I kept spending somewhere easier. You do not need to memorize every rule or every number. You just need to know these accounts exist and put something into one, anything at all. You do not need permission to start learning this. It took me embarrassingly long to realize that. Seventh thing. This one is quiet, but it follows you everywhere you go. Your word. Whether people can actually count on you to do what you said you would do, pay something back when you said you would, show up when you said you would show up, not because someone is checking, but because you said it. I had a rough stretch once and missed a payment, just one. I told myself it was no big deal. It followed me longer than I expected. A friend asked me for a small favor a few months later, nothing major, just covering something small until his next payday, and I noticed the hesitation in how he asked, like he was not entirely sure I would follow through. That stung more than the missed payment itself ever did. It took a long time to fix what that one slip actually cost. Not the number on paper, but the trust I had to rebuild, mostly with myself. Nobody talks about this part much. There is no exciting story in paying things on time for 15 years straight, but that boring, unremarkable reliability is currency. Your reputation reaches the room before you do. That is wealth, long before any money ever shows up to confirm it. Eighth thing. I found this one completely by accident. An older man who used to work with my father, retired early, nothing flashy about him, drove the same truck for almost 20 years. We got to talking one afternoon. Just small talk, and somehow it turned into him explaining how he actually thought about money. Not lecturing, just talking. The way you would talk to someone you genuinely liked. He asked me one question that stuck with me. What is the most you have ever lost on something, and what did you actually learn from it? I gave him a polished answer. He just laughed and told me to try again, this time without trying to sound smart. So I told him the real thing. Some foolish investment I made at 24 because a coworker swore it was a sure thing. He nodded like he had heard that exact story 100 times before. He probably had. Before I left, he folded the receipt from our lunch in half and slid it into his wallet. Did not throw it away, barely even glanced at it, just folded it and put it away like it was a habit older than I was. I asked him why he kept it. He shrugged and said he liked knowing where his money went, even the small stuff. Especially the small stuff. That single conversation did more for me than every article I had ever read. Finding someone like that does not require a professional or a title, just somebody a little further down the road than you. Borrow their 20 years, it will save you 20 mistakes. Most of us never ask because we assume we are supposed to figure it all out completely alone. Nobody actually does it alone. The people who look like they did just never talk about who helped them. Ninth thing. The last one. And I think it is the one people misunderstand the most. They hear all of this and assume it means suffering now so you can be comfortable later, skipping everything, enjoying nothing. That is not even close to what I saw in Mr. Delacroix's story. From everything I read, he had a full life, his routines, his small pleasures, whatever made an ordinary Tuesday feel like his own. He simply never confused comfort with excess. Picture a regular Sunday. Someone makes coffee at home instead of driving out for it, not because money is tight, but because they would rather sit on their own porch for 20 extra minutes than sit in a drive-through line. Later that same day, they spend real money on something that genuinely matters to them, dinner with people they love, a trip they had been planning for months. From the outside, that looks inconsistent, careful about coffee, generous about the trip. It is not inconsistent at all. It is exactly the point. You can enjoy your life and still be quietly building something in the background. Those two things are not in competition. People just act like they are. One eye on today and one eye on the years ahead. both open at the same time. Delayed joy is not wealth. Choosing your joy carefully is wealth. That brown jacket he wore for 31 winters was never about sacrifice. It was about a man who already knew exactly what he needed and did not need convincing otherwise. So here we are, 9 things, none of them flashy, none of them going to make you rich by Friday. You do not need to do all 9 tonight. Trying to do all 9 at once is how people quit by Thursday. Just do one. Open your phone, your notes app, whatever you have available. Tonight, give yourself one honest number. What you actually have right now, not what you think you have, what is actually there. That is enough for tonight. You do not need a plan yet. You do not need to fix anything right now. I think about Mr. Delacroix sometimes and wonder what his very first number ever looked like. Some small, modest amount decades ago that probably did not feel like the beginning of anything at all. It never does at the start. That is the whole trick of it. Just one honest number written down so that tomorrow you are no longer guessing. That is the first entry. Everything else follows from there. Quiet entries in an account nobody else can see. If somebody opened yours 30 years from now, what would they actually find in it? Nobody on that street ever remembered the size of his bank account. They remembered the man in the brown jacket. Funny how those two things turned out to be exactly the same story.